So, welcome to the next lesson where we start talking about the spine. And if you remember from the previous session, the spine is this. Let me go to Skin tab first. And this is what we're going to manipulating using a spine. It's the actual shape of the branches. So using the spine tab, you're only going to control the shape of the branch itself. So the next one is going to be length, and this is self-explanatory. It's going to manipulate the length of the spine. So as always, we have an absolute value and a variance value as well. So for now, I have set the absolute value to be 20 and a variance value of 10. This absolute value is always going to be staying the same unless you add a variance value to it. So let me clear out this variance, and now you see all of them have been scaled to the same size and all of them are 20 units. And if you have multiple nodes, for example, in this case, we have multiple trunk nodes. You go to this variance and increase a lot of variance. So it's going to vary them for you. For example, if you introduce a big value, for example, something like 15, you're getting a lot of more radicals. And the next values are going to act as a multiplier to that value. And let me take these and hide them so that we have only these big branches, and let's select this, and in the spine tab let's see that it doesn't have any absolute value, and this is good for randomization. If later on you start to randomize your tree using this random seeds, if you hit randomize all and if you do not enable any absolute value, it's going to give you a lot better values. So you can either use absolute, or you can use absolute plus these, or you can use these ones without absolute. And this is the way that it has used. The second one is going to look at the parent and multiply a value based on the height of the parent into this absolute value that you add. And if you make it longer, you're going to get longer. And as I said, this is good for randomization that comes later on. And then there's this plus percent of radius, and this is going to increase the length based on the radius that this one has. So the length of the spine is going to be achieved use these values. And the next ones are orientation. And we have the start angle in here, and it's going to manipulate the angle which these branches are start off of. So if I bring it higher, I'm going to get angle variances. But of course, you can use these variance values and this parent curve to randomize it a little bit more. And then we have the start roll, which is like the angle, like the start angle, but for the roll option. And it's going to roll them around themselves. And this alignment is going to make them point more towards the up. And this roll is good for changing the rotation of the branches. So in the next one, we have the shape tab. And first we have the gravity, and it's self-explanatory. It's going to apply a gravity to the branches. And if you make this negative, for example, it's going to be reversed. And then we have this ancestor, and it's going to be affecting these and aligning them to their parents. If you make it positive, it's going to make them grow in the direction of their parents, and if you make it negative, it makes them go away in other direction. And now you see the parent is pointing to this direction. Now if I make this one positive, they're going to grow in this direction as well. It has own use cases. And then we have the straightness, which is self-explanatory. It's going to make them straight and without any procedural noises. So if you make this negative, you see we have a lot of bending and things like that. And this twist is self-explanatory. The branches are going to get twisted around themselves. Let me delete this one. And now let's change the twist. See, it's creating the twist, which is equal to something like this twist that we have in the forces. The next property is the curl, and it's just like the curl force, and it's going to make them curl around themselves using this direction. You have seen how we created this effect using the curl force in here. And then the next one is zigzag, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to create a zigzaggy shape based on this absolute and relative value. If you want more zigzags or less zigzags tiling in your mesh, the intensity makes it a stronger, and this absolute and relative makes it tile less or more. And then we have the prune, which is something like the knockout force that we added. It's going to look at these directions and remove any of the branches and spines in that direction. And of course, if you bring the intensity up, it's going to delete a lot of the things, even if it's not in the way. And in all of them, if you make it 1, it's going to delete everything. And this is like a threshold, and it's going to look, for example, up, and if everything is in up, it's going to delete them, or down, or generally. And if you hit this, everything that has intersection with this ground plane is going to be deleted. So for example, like this, let me hit ground, and everything with the intersection with the ground is going to be deleted right here. And the next important one is going to be the noise. And the noise is also self-explanatory. It's going to introduce a lot of noise to the branches. And of course, if you have more subdivisions and more polygon, it's going to be a lot better and well defined. And we have 2 layers of noise, early and late. The early is going to be a lot more radical, and this early is going to add a lot of noises. And later on, using this late, you can add another layer of noise on top of that first one. So let's hide this for the performance and add a lot of noise in here. Excuse me, I should have selected this one. So let's add a lot of noise in here. You see, we are getting a lot of noise. And this turbulence and threshold also are going to control where and how much we're going to have the noise in there. And then we have late, and this late is also going to apply noise on that. So let's look at this. You see it's jagged in here. If we go to segments and try to make it higher, and then make the accuracy more, we are seeing less jaggedy things, of course at the cost of the performance, because we now have a lot more polygons to deal with. And the next one is Jink, and it's good for straightening and getting rid of a lot of the noises that it has. And based on this absolute value, if you make it less, you're getting a lot of jaggedy things, and if you make it higher, the transition is going to be a smoother. But overall, if the absolute value is too low, and using this amount, you can straight out the branches that you have, and the uniformity is going to make the segments like each other. And this brick, as the name suggests, is going to increase the chance of the branches being broken. And if you bring it up so high, the chance is going to be so much higher. And in the parent curve as well, if you bring it up to max, you're getting more, and if you bring it down, you're getting less. So if you want to break a lot of things, this is where you can. And using the spot is going to tell where from the branch it's going to be broken. If you bring it to here, it's going to be broken off right from the start. And of course, if you bring it up, it's going to be broken later on. And this seed also is going to randomize that. If you hit this button, you're getting randomized things in there. Okay, this was for the spine, and I believe we can spend a little bit of time on the skin tab as well, because these two are most important when it comes to shape and geometry of everything that we create in a speed tree. So we're not going to deal with this type because it's a bit advanced and not good for introduction. So the next thing that we're going to manipulate is the radius. And this radius is going to decide on how fat or how small and tiny the branches and the spine is going to be. And again, we have an absolute value which is going to go a lot higher than you think. And of course, we have this percentage, which is just like the spine that we had here. And if you check this on clamp to parent, it's not going to go beyond the parent. If I uncheck this, you see we're getting so chaotic, which is unnatural. And if you set the clamp to parent, it's always going to stay natural and not going to anything beyond the parent, which in this case is these trunks. The next one deals with the lighting, not the geometry itself. This light seam reduction, if I bring it up in here, and you see there are a lot of seams in here, and if you want to reduce any seams, it's going to make the normals and do changes to them. For example, you can roll it or you can make it a smooth to remove the seams, but I really do not most of the times deal with this option because I believe the default setting is okay to use. So the next one is welding, and this is very important, and it's good for creating natural seams and interactions between the parent and children. Now the welding is on. Let me turn it off so that you can see the effect. And now you see there's a harsh, ugly seam in here. If you enable the weld, it's going to be a lot softer. And the magic comes from here. If we go to the render mode and this script, you see SpeedTree has an algorithm to create a fall off in here, so that this fall off in here, which is red, is going to look at the UVs in here and mimic them and bring them into here so that the transition between the texture is almost non-visible. You see, if I go to node mode and try to move this, you see this is where it's going to look at the texture of the parent and duplicate it on top of that texture, multiply it on top of that texture so that the seam between the branch and parent is gone. And it's one of the most interesting things that SpeedTree has to offer, so that we get perfect transitions between the parent and children's. And the next one is the keep failed. And sometimes it fails to create something like this because of the geometry, so it's going to delete it. But if you hit it keep failed, it's going to bring those on also as well and give you the reason why it has been failed. You can manipulate it, bring it up, bring it down to make it correct. In this case, we do not have anything, so we're going to let it off. The next one is offset, and it's going to offset the UVs. Let me bring up this. And it's going to offset the point of interaction between parent and the child and bring this down or bring this out or in if you want. If you hit it 0, it's going to be default. And if you change the offset, it's going to make it on. And the next one, this spread, is going to manipulate this place for us. Let me bring the render. It's going to manipulate this transition point for us. We can make it higher, bring it up, or bring it down, depending on the needs that we have in the tree. And if you make it so unrealistically long, we are going to get some artifacts. So let's make this one 0 and this one 0 as well. This is the default somehow, but if you want to, you can manipulate it. The next tab is blend, and it's good for blending two textures together. This is a tab that is going to select either you want this to attack to here or you want the parent to attack the child. If you set it here, this one is dominant, and if you turn it to right, this is going to be dominant from parents or from children. And then we have the texture scale, which is going to fix some issues for us if we have any. And then we have contrast. It's going to add some contrast into there. And then we have noise, which is going to, as the name suggests, change the pattern in which these two textures are going to be mixed together. And for most of the time, I really do not advise so much contrast, so the transition is happening right on. And the next option is a squash, and it's also for displace. Let me go to script, and if you squash it, it's going to make the branch, make the radius a squash. And then we have the rotate, which you can rotate the branches if you want. It's good for removing that cylindrical shape that the branch has. And then we have the split, and this split is very good for creating natural sections in the tree. If you hit the split and bring the chance on, a lot of the things are going to get splitted in here. Something like this, like a shotgun barrel. And to make the split happen, you turn the split on in here, make the chances high, and then go to the children, and in the generation tab, go for extend parent and hit any. It's going to create a split for you. Of course, the split is now too high. Let's go to a skin tab in here, or let me remove this and add yet another default bifurcating branches and add it here so that we have some natural transition instead. So for adding a split, you select the parent, and in here you go and increase the chance of a split. In here, just increase the chance so that the split happens in here. And then let me take these, and if you select this transition point and hit backspace, it's going to deselect that. So let's add some branches, and it added some branches to there. And if you want to make the split happen, you select the parent, increase the chance up, and in parent, in the branch that you added, go and for extend parent in the generation tab, you can hit a split 1 or a split 2, which this one doesn't have, or you can hit any, so that it's going to, everywhere it sees a point, it's going to add the split for you. And this is basically what happens in nature. We have a lot of splits happening in areas where the branch is broken, and this is the point where the split has been happening. And if you go to parent and in this skin tab, we have the spread, expand, and a smooth. This spread is going to be something like a starting angle, but for the split, it's only going to affect the split branches, and it's going to have 2 splits. This is going to affect the first one, and this is going to affect the other one if you want to make them a bit more randomized. And the expand is also going to make this one bigger or make this one bigger, depending on your need. And this smooth is going to look at the transition point between the branch and the split and affect that if you want to make it smoother in inner or outer, depending on your needs. So this was for the skin tab as well. We covered a lot of things in this lesson, and I feel like we can safely stop this lesson and move on to the next. So see you in the next lesson.